Hey guys, I wanted to give you a reading lesson and another tool to help you understand your books. And the tool is keeping track of who's talking in the story. When somebody is talking in the story, that's called dialogue. And if you were watching a movie and the sound was turned off, you would be able to see the actions, but you wouldn't be able to understand everything that's going on because you wouldn't be able to hear anybody talking. So, in order to understand a movie or a story that you're reading, you have to pay attention to the action and the dialogue. The dialogue is who's talking. And so there's different clues that you can use in the story to help you see when someone's talking and who's talking. So remember, we talked about quotation marks. Quotation marks are around what someone says. They're little marks. It almost looks like an apostrophe, but there's two of them. And there's one at the beginning of what someone says and one at the end. So this says, "Oh, please, can I visit Tina?" And that's what the person said. And then there's a dialogue tag oftentimes that tells you who's speaking. This says, "Lucy begged." So that means Lucy is speaking. Now, instead of just saying Lucy said, you would recognize the word said. Sometimes it gives you a little more clue of how to read what they're saying. So you read it in a begging voice. "Oh, please, can I visit Tina?" Lucy begged. You see how I read it differently? I read it like I was begging because the dialogue tag gave me a clue. So you can use the quotation marks, the dialogue tag. You can also use the pictures in the book if there are any pictures. And you can make a movie in your mind. Sometimes there won't be a dialogue tag and you have to really use all the clues that are there and figure out who's talking. And you have to keep track of that in your mind. And if the movie in your mind gets a little fuzzy and you lose track of who's talking or what's going on, then you always have to go back and reread. So in this story, The Littles, which is based on the books by John Peterson, on this page it says, "Don't worry," said Cousin Dinky. So right away, it's telling you who's talking. It says, "Said Cousin Dinky," and he said, "Don't worry." But now listen to the rest. There's no more dialogue tags, so who's talking? It says, "I know the way, and I'm not afraid of mice and squirrels. I'd take you all in my glider, but it only has 2 seats, so we'll have to walk." Now, there's no other dialogue tags on the page, so you can assume that Cousin Dinky is still speaking. He's spoken all of this. And it has another quotation at the beginning. After "Don't worry," said Cousin Dinky, it starts a new quotation mark. And the ending one is not all the way until the bottom of the page. So one person is saying all of this. And it's Cousin Dinky still speaking. And if you had read the previous page, you would see that he is the one that is flying the glider plane. So you can also use clues earlier on in the story to figure out who's talking. On the next page it says, "All right," said Mr. Little. So right away, you know Mr. Little is talking. He says, "All right," said Mr. Little. And then it has another quotation, says, "But I'm coming too." So who's talking there? Well, that's Mr. Little. He's continuing to talk. And then the next line says, "Hooray!" Lucy shouted. So it's telling you that she's shouting. She's saying, "Hooray! We can go tomorrow." Now that's confusing. Who's still talking? The next line says, "I'll stay home with Granny and Baby Betsy," Mrs. Little said. So we know Mrs. Little is saying that, "I'll stay home with Granny and Baby Betsy." But is she saying we can go tomorrow? Well, if she's staying home, would she be saying we can go tomorrow? No, she wouldn't say, she would say you could go tomorrow, but she wouldn't say we. So that must be Lucy still talking. "Hooray!" Lucy shouted. "We can go tomorrow. I'll stay home with Granny and Baby Betsy," Mrs. Little said. You see how I had to figure that out? You have to figure that out in the story sometimes. Sometimes you have to stop and think and say, who's talking? What's going on here? You have to stop and check in with yourself. Now, on this other page that I marked, this says, "By the time the Littles reached the Smalls' house, it was getting dark." Now, on the next page, it says, Tina Small gave Lucy Little a big hug. So the two girls are hugging. "I can't believe you're really here," she cried. So it says she cried. That's the dialogue type. But who's talking? Is it Tina Small or Lucy Little? Well, It says Tina Small gave Lucy Little a big hug. They're both hugging. I can't believe you're really here. Well, Lucy Little is the one that came to Tina's house. Tina was already here. So would she be saying I can't would Lucy be saying I can't believe you're here? Tina was already there. So it must be Tina saying to Lucy, I can't believe you're really here. Because Lucy just got there. So you have to think that when it says she cried, you could replace the she with Tina cried. I can't believe you're really here, Tina cried. And also look at the picture. Who's talking? Is it Lucy or Tina? Tina's talking. So do you see how I had to use the clues to figure out and keep track of who's talking in the story? That's what you need to do in your books. And if you can't figure it out, or you come to some trouble and you get confused, you must stop and reread. Okay? Try that in your story. See if you can keep track of who's talking. I'll see you next time.